All right, if everyone will find a seat, we will get started. I'd like to call Louisiana State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education meeting into order and begin with a roll call.
Yes, sir. Dr. Beebe.
Here.
Dr. Beebe is present. Ms. Bofi.
Here.
Ms. Bofi is present. Ms. Bradford.
Here.
Ms. Bradford is present. Mr. Garvey.
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Mr. Gio is absent. Ms. Hill.
Here.
Ms. Hill is present. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Dr. Moranti.
Present.
Dr. Moranti is present. Ms. Orange Jones. Ms. Orange Jones is not here, but I think she will be. Mr. Romer.
Here.
Mr. Romer is present. Ms. Smith. Here. Ms. Smith is present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, members, for all being here today, and thank you those in the audience that came today. I want to start off. We're going to recognize this group in a few minutes, but I would like to invite two members, one to give the invocation and one to give the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask Tammy Shales, who's one of the Teachers of the Year from Ruston Elementary, to come forward to give the invocation, and then to give the pledge, I'm sorry, and then follow that up with a prayer. I threw you off for a moment. I apologize. The principal, one of the principals of the year, Debbie Fuller, will give the prayer. We'll begin actually with the prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you'd thrown her off, it wouldn't have mattered. That teacher could have handled it.
Bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we might always make the best decisions for the good of all the school children in Louisiana. We pray that you give us the wisdom to know and define our tasks, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all who are assembled here have a safe journey home. We thank you for all your past and future blessings. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both for that. Next would be the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Mr. Lee, and seconded by Ms. Smith. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Approval of the minutes, item 3, of April 15th and May 12th, 2014. A motion to approve the minutes. So moved. Motion by Ms. Bradford, seconded by Mr. Lee. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. I'd like to invite the State Superintendent to please give us his report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I'd like to talk a little bit about the discussion that we've been having over the last couple of days on educator preparation. And I'd like to try to situate that within the larger discussion that we just had with our friends in higher education. I think someone said yesterday about our efforts on on educator preparation, that it is ground up efforts. And I hope that you've seen that I think the things that you have created that will endure are ground up partnerships rather than top down implementations. And I want to talk a little bit about that work, how it's happening, and how this educator preparation work fits in. Standards we set as a board, and we set that for the state. And that's something that we're going to mandate, that we have minimum standards. But how we reach those standards, I think our most successful implementations are ground up in nature. First of all, our early childhood system is calling on local communities to create grassroots solutions by bridging higher ed, Head Start, child care, and K-12. We're shoring up the fragments. Second, our curriculum approach asks educators and locals to choose the appropriate curriculum, to use tools in the classroom, and to bring together those tools into one seamless vision of classroom instruction, ground up. Third, our Jumpstart program and our partnership with higher education brings workforce together with higher education, with K-12 high schools, into local proposals for how to shape pathways to high school. The fourth pillar in this, early childhood, our K-12 education in the classroom, and our high school and post-secondary pathways, really the fourth pillar to this is educator preparation. It is a system that exists in fragments. How often have you heard from a professor or a dean at a college, our students don't get enough time teaching in the classroom? One semester or a full year of student teaching is not enough. We don't have enough access. How many times have you heard from a superintendent? Well, we heard from some yesterday. Well, and some of you are sitting in this job today as we speak. I don't get the candidates that I need to fill the requirements that I have. It is time that we end this divide and bring together the K-12 system and its concerns with the higher ed system and its concerns. This year is going to be greatly about that, but we have to do it through a ground-up partnership rather than through a top-down implementation. Our Believe and Prepare proposals that you've heard over the last couple of days are the heart and soul of that. They're the leading edge. They're the Doris Voces of the world. But it's not just the Doris Voces of the world. It's the LSUs. It's the Louisiana Techs. These institutions are coming to the table with their partner school systems in places like West Feliciana and places like Lincoln Parish to create teacher-practitioner models. They're not about politics or policy. It's about how do we use our master educators to educate teachers on the job in the classroom as apprentices. And get this, they're going to get college or master's credit for doing it. That's a tremendous advance, and we're letting our grassroots educators show us the way. Now, as Dr. Moranti pointed out yesterday, as Dr. Beebe pointed out yesterday, that will have to come with you advancing policy. For example, you cannot have grassroots proposals of equal quality if you do not have equal accountability standards from one program to the next. This is a chance not just to get great ideas from the field, but also for you to apply an equal standard of quality so that an alternative provider has an equal standard of accountability to a higher ed provider. And we commit to you that over the course of the next year, as we've done on workforce and CTE, as we've done on early childhood, as we've done on our K-12 academics, we will be bringing to you policy, and I will be out touring our state to discuss educator preparation policy and accountability for those programs as well as for educators in the process. In September, we will advance to you a very, very rough draft policy proposal for unified accountability. Over the course of the year, I will be touring the state, and I will be in every one of the districts that you represent to talk about this issue with educators and with higher education. And whereas last year I went directly to the community and technical colleges, for those of you who were there to have those discussions, this year I will go directly to our high schools, to our elementary schools, and to our institutions of four-year universities to talk about these issues, such that by this year, around this time next year, we're hoping to have final policies. Remember, we will have learned for a year from the Doris Voces of the world to be able to bring you what's going on in the classroom, what works and what doesn't. Also, I will have been out there talking in the field about equivalent accountability and licensure policy so that we can learn what people think about the policy proposal to support these apprentice and practitioner-based models. And I will then be bringing to you suggested policy proposals in roughly a year's time. But you will start to see rough drafts this fall. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to share that with you. Mr. President, I wanted to share that with you as an example of how we're trying to make our policy mirror our implementation. It's grassroots, ground up, just as we as a board maintain equal accountability in every single way. And I hope that that answers some of the questions that existed yesterday about equal accountability. It's time we have it. We're going to ensure it, but we're also going to do it in conjunction with a grassroots implementation. I thank you, Mr. President, for that implementation and look forward to your to the board's questions or comments.
Thank you very much for that report. If a member has a question or comment, I certainly would welcome that. Ms. Bophy.
I'd just like to say I appreciate this approach. I know it's similar to the approach that we're using with the early childhood networks, and I think that it's more thoughtful on our part to try it, see what the needs are in the field, and then create our policy based on those needs, as opposed to trying to write policy for something that we're not quite sure how it's going to work in the field. So I appreciate that, and just like the other board members that I heard from yesterday, I believe that the accountability and the focus on results is important, and so I look forward to seeing how this pilot goes and also how the work in the districts looks on the field. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Bovee, and thank you for that report, Superintendent. Before we move to the next item, I'd like to recognize Ms. Bovee for a moment of personal privilege.
So this is one of my most exciting meetings because we get to meet the finalists for State Teacher of the Year and State Principal of the Year. And yesterday, the board received the information on the process, but for some people in the audience, I'll just give you an idea of what all this involves for the teachers and the principals that you're about to meet. So our districts are able to nominate up to 3 Teachers of the Year and Principals of the Year candidates. And that information is sent to the state. From that information, we then, the Department of Ed scores and actually goes out and observes these teachers. And so the field gets narrowed down. So our teachers' names are turned in from their districts. The field's narrowed down because our network teams go out and observe these teachers and spend time with these principals in their schools and their classrooms. Their application at that point consists of a resume, their students' results, an instructional video for the teachers, and essay questions. From the semifinalists, then it goes to the finalists. And the finalists come to Baton Rouge, and they participate in an interview process. I've had the pleasure, it's one of the most exciting opportunities I've had as a professional is to interview finalists for State Teachers of the Year, to see into these teachers' classrooms and into these leaders' schools and hear about all of the wonderful things going on. So they are participating in those interviews. From these interviews, we will end up with an elementary State Teacher of the Year, a middle school State Teacher of the Year, a high school State Teacher of the Year, and an overall State Teacher of the Year. All of this will be announced at the symposium, which we were all invited to, and I hope to see many of you there at that event. I know Mr. Lee attends every year. I think we need to get him a badge for that. And so we today get to meet these finalists for our Teacher of the Year and Principal of the Year. So we'll go ahead because we have 10 in each group. We'll do the Teachers of the Year first. We'll have a picture taken, and then I'll call up the Principals of the Year. And someone needs to let me know if the principals, if we recognize them at every level, elementary, middle, and high, and then overall. Great. Okay. So the Principals of the Year have the same, will recognize the same amount in the same way. So, and then just to tell the Teachers of the Year. So this is really exciting to me because I didn't know we had a State Teacher of the Year until I was about to be named as State Teacher of the Year. I'm really bad at reading the directions, and so I wanted my school to be recognized for something positive, and I worked really hard on my application because I was in a school that really just made the news if maybe somebody brought a knife or something. So I worked really hard on that application process, and then somewhere along the way someone said, okay, well, now you are going to go to the state level, and I had to figure out what that means. And I'm still trying to figure it out because the recognition has changed my life in so many ways. But I think one of the most important ways is the people that I've met along the way. So one thing I want to encourage all of you to do is to exchange contact information, spend time with each other at the symposium, because turn that timer off.
It was not a timer. That was...
I'm really not stopping for Garvey.
It's been 2 minutes.
Thanks.
Time's up.
This is the most important work we do. You got it. Spend time with each other at the symposium because it's the collegiality of being with the other Teachers of the Year that has made the biggest difference. So now's the time. We are first going to recognize Mark E. Barb from Ascension Parish. Mark, come on up. From Bossier Parish, Anita Sambathia. Anita. From Jefferson Davis Parish, we have Aaron Thibodeau. From Lafourche Parish, we have Lottie Danos. From Lincoln Parish, we have Tammy Shales. From Plaquemines Parish, we have Heather Lawson. From St. Bernard Parish, we have Justin Burkhart. From St. John the Baptist Parish, we have Angela Davis. From St. Tammany Parish, we have Robin Day. And from West Feliciana Parish, we have Carla Jackson. Board members, would you like to join the honorees for the picture?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's okay. One, two, three.
Okay, we got it. We're going to recognize the principals now. From Ascension Parish, we have Marjorie Myers. From Caldwell Parish, we have Jennifer Nikki McCann. From the Choice Foundation, we have Nicole Saulney. From DeSoto Parish, we have Debbie Fuller. From East Baton Rouge Parish, we have Charmaine Rutledge. From Jefferson Parish, we have Catherine Denise Ream. From Lincoln Parish, we have Richard Durrett. From St. Charles Parish, we have Ken Ortling. From St. Tammany Parish, we have Patrick Mackin. He was not able to join us today, but we certainly want to recognize him. And from Terrebonne Parish, we have Julio Contreras.
did he? Thank you very much, Ms. Bofi, for that, and thank you to all the principals and the teachers for being here. Congratulations to you. We really appreciate it. We have one more bit of, I don't want to say only good news, but we have another piece of exciting information to share this morning. A student who's achieved outstanding things in our state and in the country, quite frankly. And I want to invite the superintendent to make that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, as you know, if you live here in Baton Rouge or if you drive down to New Orleans, there is a prominent billboard which is by the Perkins Road exit off of I-10, and it's the first billboard that I've ever seen that advertises only one student's accomplishments. I mean, it's a pretty novel thing. I suggest it's big, bright yellow. I suggest you check it out. That student is very deserving of that billboard, and he's deserving of all the accolades he's received. His name is Jalen Scott. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. I just met him for the first time, though, this morning, and his reputation and accomplishments precede him. He is an 8th grade student at Kenilworth, which is a Type 5 charter school here in East Baton Rouge Parish, and he was recently honored as the grand prize winner of the Global Climate International Environmental Project Olympiad held in, get this, Nairobi, Kenya. So not only is he a recognized scientist, but he is also a world traveler, having been to places that many of us can only dream of going. This competition drew students from more than 36 countries, and it awarded him an award for a project that investigated, and I found this very interesting, the lead contamination levels of properties located on school sites in East Baton Rouge Parish, which I think is an interesting public health project. The academic journal Soil Horizons, which is a peer-reviewed publication of the Soil Society of America, published an article that was co-written by Jalen, so he is actually now a published researcher. And as a result of his accomplishments, he was recently awarded or honored by Mayor Kip Holden here in East Baton Rouge. Also, May 14th was declared a day that is named in Jalen's honor here in East Baton Rouge Parish, and we thought it was appropriate that he be able to come and join us today to share a little bit of his work. And so, Jalen, if you wouldn't mind come joining us, ladies and gentlemen, Jalen Scott.
Hello, my name is Jalen Scott.
Jalen, if you could speak up just a little bit into the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Jalen Scott, and the project I worked on was lead contamination in schoolyard soils. What we found were 4 of the 11 schools were contaminated, and 3 of those 4 schools were elementary schools, and 1 was a high school. So, as those schools being elementary schools, children are at a more high risk of receiving lead poisoning, moreover than someone in high school. So so when we did the project, I entered the school science fair and I won 2nd place. Then we went to the regionals, I won 2nd place. And then a year later, I received word that I was going to enter a competition in Kenya, Nairobi. And so when they were calling the names out for the winners, they said 3rd, 2nd, and 1st place. And I had no idea that there was a grand prize. So I thought I lost, so I just had to deal with it. And then when they said grand prize and they said my name, I had to think back, I forgot my name. So I had so I got up and my legs were shaking. And I stepped on all of my stuff on the road. I stepped on almost everyone on the road, almost fell going up the stairs. And I almost gave a speech where the host was, and I wasn't supposed to do that. So I was very nervous, but at the same time, very happy and honored.
Well, we're honored to have you here. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the presentation and for asking Jalen to come join us today.
No, I want to thank you. Those of you who may not live in Baton Rouge, I know you've gotten international recognition through these publications, but your work has been on the news here recently many times, and very proud of the work you do, and you've done a great service for this community. So we thank you very much, Jalen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to board committee reports.
Yes, sir. The first report is Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. Ms. Bradford.
On behalf of the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 12, noting that motions 8 through 11 are notices of intent.
We have a motion and we have a second by Dr. Moranti. Any questions or comments? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Next item.
The next item is item 5.2, Administration and Finance Committee. Ms. Smith?
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 15 plus 17 through 63, pulling motions 16 and 64, noting that motions 65 and 66 are notices of intent.
We have a motion. Do we have a second for that? So we'll go first to the items for approval. Is there any question on the items that were moved for approval? The second was, I believe, it was I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, you made the motion. I can't remember. Who was the second? Ms. Bradford, I'm sorry. So we'll go to the items that were moved for approval. Is there any question on those items? Any objection to the approval of those items? Hearing none, so moved. We will move to item 16 for a pull.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me just say at the beginning, I should have asked this yesterday, and I'm in support of the motion, but I did have a legislator and a superintendent ask me to just get clarification on this particular item that is on page 140 of our booklet from yesterday, and it's those school improvement grants that totaled $1.5 million. And I just need some clarification. This was what they were trying to find out. Who was actually eligible to receive this federal grant money? And if all schools are eligible and only charters received it, I'm not opposed to that. I just want to know if we need to let other school districts know that they have an opportunity to apply for this sum of money that's allocated between 2013 and 2016. So if I could just get some clarification on that.
Sure. There are 3 funding streams that fund the act of school turnaround in Louisiana. One is called Believe and Prepare, and that is 8G funding that allows school systems, charters, what have you, to create new school leaders, to train new school leaders to turn around schools. The other is 1003A money, which is put out by the federal government. 1003A money is to be targeted at D and F rated schools statewide. That is in our Elementary and Secondary Education Act waiver that is part of the federal legal framework. 1003A monies you awarded yesterday to some of the districts I mentioned, among others, Avoyelles, Natchitoches, Rapides, Jefferson. Third are 1003G money. According to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, 1003G is to be spent solely on schools that are within the Recovery School District. That is why the funds that Ms. Smith has identified, which are 1003G funds, are solely for F-rated schools in the recovery, solely for schools in the Recovery School District. Thus, that is why they are Type 5 charter schools that are receiving those funds.
Okay, so if there's a question, it's why all of these are in charter New Orleans and Baton Rouge simply is because that's the schools that are only eligible to apply.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And you would see the same thing is true at 1003A money. A district like St. Tammany, for example, that doesn't have any DNF schools, they wouldn't be eligible to apply for 1003A money. There is a specific category for each school as determined in the federal waiver.
Thank you.
And we will look into changing that as well.
Ms. Smith, does that answer your question? Would you have a motion on 16 that you'd like to consider now?
I move favorable.
There's a motion to move favorable on item 16 and seconded by Ms. Bradford. Is there any other question? Any objection? Hearing none, we'll move to item 64.
Yes, I put item 64, just to make sure we have clarity in regards to my request. As written, it states Ms. Hill requests an item to be placed on the agenda for the next Administration and Finance Committee regarding consideration of the process for selecting a future governing authority for John McDonald High School, including New Orleans Parish School Board. So I'd like to amend and to add that and have it in record that it shall say including Orleans Parish School Board, to include Orleans Parish School Board, I'm sorry.
Members, this is a item that Ms. Hill has requested be added to the agenda. And do you mind restating your amendment real quick?
Sure. My amendment is to include Orleans Parish School Board.
To include Orleans Parish School
Yeah,
Board.
at the end where it says for John McDonald,
Okay.
to include Orleans Parish School Board.
Members, I need a motion to approve item 64 as amended. Is that what I?
We didn't amend the motion, we amended the request, but now we need the motion to approve.
Approve. Okay, so we amended the request, but now we need a motion to approve item 64.
I move.
Moved by Dr. Beebe, seconded by Mrs. Hill.
I
Is-
object.
There's an objection, which is, we'll note that you objected to that item. I don't know, now's time for comment, I suppose.
Is there a discussion? Okay, so there's a couple of things, board members. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I think we heard some very deeply heartfelt, passionate testimony yesterday from members of this community. However, the comments we heard were not they were not fully exhaustive of all of the perspectives of stakeholders in this community, my district. And I believe it's important for us to do due diligence and actually have the opportunity to reach out to multiple stakeholders. In particular, I've directed Patrick Dobard, Superintendent of RSD, to actually co-convene a meeting along with myself to actually meet with this community and really determine the best path forward. I think the thing we would not want to do is assume that the best path forward for this particular school, as you know, the sentiments are expressed by this particular community group, is to necessarily return to OPSB. I think that's where the leap is. So we do have some work to do, and I've already directed the superintendent to do so, and I intend to follow up on that. But the fact that we're already starting to determine what that path is makes me exceptionally uncomfortable. And particularly in the context of OPSB, as I'm sure board members are aware currently, there is no superintendent of the OPSB currently. They're still in the search. So this is a district that still is amidst a lot of instability currently and has a long way to go. And generally, I just think we have to ensure that we are doing right by multiple stakeholders in this environment, not necessarily, you know, of course I respect the perspectives of the few that came here, but there's a broader set of meetings that really need to occur for us to come to the right path of ensuring that this school is as successful as it needs to be. Thank you.
Mr. Lee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, I object to. I think it's not right to even suggest that we're limiting our scope at this time, and we should try, as Ms. Jones said, to keep our scope as wide as possible.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lee.
I'm calling a point of order. This appears to me that the motion for item 64 is to receive a report. That's all.
I was going to.
So I don't understand. I'm simple-minded.
Well, I will note the objection. Here's what I actually believe. I believe we have a policy of allowing members to place items on the agenda. Okay, and I understand the objection, and I understand your sentiment, and agree with your sentiment, Ms. Orange-Jones. But I don't believe it's in order at this moment. This is simply putting an item on the agenda for future consideration.
Yeah.
And if we don't do this now, I certainly would allow Ms. Hill to call me after and request it to be on the agenda, and it would be placed on the agenda. So, you know, I would like to note your objection and your reasons for it, and certainly at that moment, when that agenda item is considered at the board meeting, at that moment would be an appropriate time for us to have that debate and object. Now, that's my ruling, and my ruling can be overruled by this body if a majority doesn't agree with my ruling, but that's what I believe. So I'm going to note the objection for the record, but I want Ms. Hill to know your item will be placed on the agenda.
Yeah, and it was just more for clarity in regards to what I was asking for, and so with that, we'll deal with it in August.
Okay, and if we need to clarify between now and the August meeting with you, then I will work with you to make sure that's clear.
And for me, I just wanted to ensure that I don't think that is limiting any other providers, but I just wanted to assure that OPSB will be at the table with the discussion. That was my major concern.
Thank you. So I need to clarify that y'all are opposed to making the request, but not the motion. Is that okay?
There is no motion concerning that issue.
What's on the board now?
Well, there's an item 64. We could dispense of this item, and I would tell Ms. Hill that I'll add it to the agenda and just do it that way.
No, I want I want it on record
Okay.
that I accept it, so.
Okay, so we need somebody technically tell me what we should do at this moment.
So we had a motion to approve
Item 64.
64,
Okay.
which was done, but then Ms. Orange-Jones and Mr. Garvey noted objections, which I believe is to Ms. Hill's request, not the motion, not item 64.
Correct.
We can note the objections under Ms. Hill's request. Is that
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I move that we receive the report.
We've got that motion, and we've got a second for that motion.
Okay.
Hearing no further discussion on that item, so moved. Next item.
The next item is item 5.3, Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, Administration and Finance Committee, I move approval of items 1 through 9.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved.
The next item is item 5.4, Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I'd like to move items 1 and 2 for approval.
There's a motion and there's a second. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved.
The next item is item 5.5, Educator Effectiveness Committee. Ms. Orange-Jones.
I move, on behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I move that to approve motions 1 to 7 and 9, noting that motion 8 is a notice of intent.
Second.
There's a motion and there's a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dr. Beebe.
I want the records to reflect that, to be consistent with action taken, my action on yesterday, I would want the record to reflect I voted no for motion 8.
On motion 8, let's note that Dr. Beebe voted no.
On the notice of intent, okay.
And also, I would like the records to reflect that I've also voted no on motion 8 as well.
Okay.
And Ms. Hill? Hearing no other, any other comments? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved.
Next item is item 5.6, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, on behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I'd like to move approval of items 1 through 1.
There's a motion and there's a second by Dr. Moranti. Is there any comment? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Before we conclude our business, I'd like to return to the superintendent's report and allow him to clarify an issue that's come to our attention.
Thank you. Members, I have received notice, as you may have, that the governor has called a press conference at 12:45 regarding the Common Core tests and the PARCC standards. As you know, we've been expecting this for some time. I want you to know that our analysis of the situation has led me to conclude that this will be an intricate legal proceeding that will involve interpretations of laws that will be invoked and constitutional applications as well. And I want you to be assured that while I do not have any understanding and have not been briefed as to any pending announcement, my conversations with the governor's office lead me to think that what I just said is true. As a result, that is going to require that we be responsive to the media, and we be responsive to legislators and responsive to you in providing an honest interpretation of these legalities, as this is an unprecedented situation for the governor to exercise authorities over these kinds of issues. As a result, I'm sure that I and probably many of you will be quoted in newspapers and so on as having specific opinions and making specific commitments. My commitment today, I want to have for you to be assured, is not to stretch beyond two bounds. One, the bounds that you have authorized me to in taking positions on matters of policy. You have approved a set of statements for this legislative session, and I assume that those continue unless I'm directed otherwise, that I will follow through on those commitments. Under its constitutional authority, this board is committed to implementing the Common Core standards and the test that it deems appropriate per the statutes of this state. Secondly, I'm going to insist that the statutes of this state be implemented with fidelity and that the laws be followed. And I will provide you, along with counsel, the best interpretation of those laws as possible. But I wanted you to be assured that my position will not be a political one. I'll be following the laws and the regulations that have been dictated to our agency. But if we find that there is an order by the governor or anyone else that conflicts with the law, we will very clearly state that. And if you have concerns or issues with any of the opinions that you see me registering or our counsel providing, I certainly invite your ongoing dialogue, and I will commit to keeping you informed as the process goes forward. But I wanted to give you a sense before we adjourn today of what my commitment to you is and to the approach that our agency takes during this difficult time. Thank you.
And members, I'll add that during the course of the next few weeks or days or hours or whatever may be appropriate, I'll certainly keep the members informed as to information that comes to our attention and that our board may or may not need to receive. So I appreciate it. Thank you. That concludes our meeting.